What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Small Lake City podcast. I'm your host, Eric Nilsson, and this week's guest is none other than Adam Broud. Now, Adam Broud is most known locally for the work that he has done with Greg Kyte in starting his own comedy series called Comedy Church, where him, Greg, and others make light of their previous Mormon lives, not in a way to bash the church, but a way to make fun of their lives that they previously lived. They take it around the country to also shine lights on regionally religious activity like Judaism in New York or the Bible Belt in the South as a way to make light of their religious upbringings. But on top of this, Adam performs in a multitude of other places and travels the country as well to still perform his own comedy acts. So we talk about him growing up in rural Southern Oregon, to moving to Utah to go to BYU, to get his MBA at BYU, and what he's up to now. So definitely a great conversation. Obviously a funny guy. This is one you're going to enjoy. Great convo with me and Adam. But without any further ado, enjoy this conversation with me and him.
And wait, how do you spell your last name? Is it Broud? Broud?
It's Broud.
Broud.
Yeah, it's like Proud, but with a B.
Broud, but with a B?
Yeah.
So you're a proud boy.
It is awkward. I got two sons, and sometimes when we're out and about, and I'll be like, "Come on, Broud boys," and people are like, "Say what? The photo?"
Anybody else like, come on, kids? Yeah, they're like, they induct members that are this. Unless you're down like Utah County or Davis County, they're like, my people. I'm like, brother. Not the kind of brother I like to give for people.
Yeah, and then you just start shouting, "Black people are cool," and people are like, "I don't know what this."
And that's like, rather kids like, you didn't mean it, honey.
This is still input.
Well, like the one thing, like, cause so I've been able to remain mentally stable through the last almost 2 months now.
You and the Proud, buddy.
You and the Proud. And there was one day I was in Florida on a work trip, and I checked Instagram, and there was this post of these kids in Utah County, like Saratoga Springs, like tearing pride flags down.
Jeez.
And I was like, don't look at the comments. Don't look at the comments. This is like the Des that posted it. And I was like, I gotta look at the comment. And it was like, good kids. They were raised right. They this. I'm like, jeez, bless so many hearts. But
well, that's where I live. I live in Provo, and I've got this beautiful view if I go out on my back porch of Wymount. It's only ruined by the 5 Trump flags right in front of it. It's that you just look down my street and it's just like Trump, 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 Trump. And they've been there basically since the first time he got elected. Like, they never took him down. They just stuck it around. They're like, my guy. I'm like, this guy does not give a shit about you. Kind of the opposite.
yes. Whereas probably one of those like Christmas tree mentalities. They're like, well, we're putting it up now.
What, am I supposed to celebrate my favorite that ends the century every day?
Well, then they're like, I could take it down, but I'm just going to have to put it back up again. And then they take it down. Like, I'm just going to have to put it.
He's going to do a third term.
So you know how many wives like, honey, like it's still up. He's like, I know it's up.
There was a dude who had his hung in their like bay window living room for forever, like in the window. They're like, you chose to have that like block your beautiful view and block like the view of your front yard where your grandkids play. And I was like, you don't sense the poetry in any of this at all, but you've literally put up a barrier between you and the world. It's your mistaken ideals.
Like, are those prayer mats in front of their eyes into the cracks?
It's yeah.
No, it's a whole dynamic. And even when because I don't go down to Utah County hardly ever anymore. I used to because I run an old job and out flowers. But like when I did, it was like I'd almost have to like point them out and be like, all right, we just got to like reassess what's about to happen in the next few hours and realize it's not. Because I always joke like I'm a Salt Lake citizen. I'm not a Utah. Like the further I get away from Salt Lake, I'm like, like maybe do a U-turn.
See, the only place I've really lived in Utah is Provo, because I came out here for BYU and just got stuck or moved away and came back like a couple times. So that's all I know. But also, like everyone I know is, they've all left the church. They're all pretty progressive, all that sort of stuff. So it's weird because I always perform in Salt Lake. And anytime I'm like, I'm from Provo, and people are like, it's got to be so weird. And I'm always like, it's not. It feels like here to me. Mm-hmm. And you guys calling Provo lame feels very much so like the band nerds telling the like VA equipment kids that they're real dorks or something, where like maybe we're all just virgins to accept it. But I think I very much so get like a different skew out there. Plus I mean, all you have to do is go to a coffee shop.
Oh yeah.
And you're safe again. Well, I do a joke for Comedy Church people where I talk about it, but the coffee shops in Utah are gayer than any like gay bar in San Francisco. Like, just walk in and you're just like, no one here has natural hair color. This is fantastic. It's wonderful. So Yeah, I just hang out at the coffee shops and like my people.
And that's like the thing too. Like I've talked to a lot of people about like the Provo or like even just Utah County in general. Like, you live down there, what's going on? Like, yeah, but I like have my people. It's not like I'm just like, all right, let's go knock doors and go like make just it.
It's just those moments where the paths collide. Like I did a show at the Orem Library the other week. It was great. It was family friendly live show sort of thing. I had to book it early, but I found out later. Someone was like, "Hey, turned out the General Release Society president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was here, and guess what? She said you were her favorite comedian." Told her not to look up the rest of my stuff.
Take Google away from her.
Yeah, I was like, but that's so nice. That's really cool. Anyway, I think it's like a fun sort of moment. Or like when the protests were happening for Black Lives Matter back in the day, like that was crazy. Do you remember hearing about that like guy in Provo who got shot?
Vaguely, I can't remember it.
It was just, there was a protest going on. And he was literally like, I have to get to Lowe's. And he refused to like go a block around the protest. So he started pushing his way through into people. People got belligerent as well and were like, you can't go through here. We've blocked the road. So it was kind of a situation where it's like, no one's right, but I don't know.
But someone's choosing to escalate.
But someone's choosing to escalate. Exactly. So it's like, no, didn't start as tough. It's like a easy place, but hitting reverse and turning right is so easy, man. Yeah, it's so easy. But anyway, he decided to go straight and he started pushing through people, which is very scary. Someone shot him. And he drove off and he survived. He later ran for mayor, basically under the platform of like, I got shot once, which is a crazy platform to be like, put me in charge. I drive over people and get shot. The kids, I'm like, I just want the airport to be better. I don't know what to tell you. And so anyway, but that was like a situation where right after that happened, the protests were happening. It was no big deal because I think, Mormon standard niceties are like, let people do their thing.
Yeah.
But as soon as things escalated to that point, the next day, there were so many guys out in tactical gear. There was someone on top of like the doTERRA building with a sniper rifle. And like, you're going to try to shoot us? We'll just use lavender to cure us, dude. That's like, you think I don't believe in this? I have no faith in God, but in lavender we trust. And so there were just all these people in tactical gear. And I feel like that was and it was like accepted as well. Like all of a sudden people started talking way more about like, let's build bridges with the officers. I'm like, nothing has been fixed. What are you talking about? And so anyway, so there are moments that like, especially in Provo, that like, there's always this, we need to be nice. And then as soon as that shifts, I mean, you can see the tribes just immediately, I feel like,
Yeah, it's like this smile and all of a sudden the smile goes away, the claws come out and you're like, it's like something like a gremlin, It's like all of a sudden you douse them in mud and they're like,
yeah, oh no, I gave them just a little bit of sacrament cup and all of a sudden they're going crazy for it. Yeah, it's kind of like that. I mean, it's also freaky because, it's the same people who are like, hey, you know what, that's your choice. It's no big deal. And it's like, I'm pretty sure you're the one who called the bomb threat on the drag brunch the other week or whatever. Like, I get your smut.
it's a joke.
Yeah. Which, I don't know. I don't know if you feel this, but I do think Utah, a unique thing about it is that, like, the worst thing you can be here is rude. Like, it's not, like, racist or anything like that. It's just being kind of rude. Like, if someone, like, is racist and someone, like, screams at them, they're like, hey, shouldn't be yelling at people no matter what happens. I'm like, this guy was just, and you're upset about the yelling. He was a little loud. Yeah, you can't be rude. I think it's the greatest culture. It's weird. Greatest culture. Oh.
So yeah, as long as everyone's just being as anxious as possible about whatever's going on and just like can't with anything.
Yeah, just a couple.
Did you ever see the movie, the one that just came out with the missionaries? Heretic? Yeah, Heritage. Yeah. Like that, like, because no movie that like portrays Mormon missionaries did as good as that. Because these girls are like, I think he wants to kill you. Like, yeah, but he gave us cake. Like, whatever, we can't. Yeah. No.
Yeah, dude. But like little small nices. I want so bad. I wish I could have watched that movie with like a non-Mormon group as well, like never been Mormon, just to see if they laughed at the same things that like watching it with a bunch of ex-Mormon people did, because there were moments like that. Yeah, when they were trying to leave, they're like, but he gave us, can't just leave now. And everyone's like, that's the most authentic thing you could moment for Mormon. Yeah, I wonder if they would have even been like, right, or if they would have been like, all right, they're being cheesy with it. I'm like, no, that's
Do you on a mission? I saw that.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I taught like this lady, come my wish for what's who. I was on a split, and so I wasn't supposed to be with the guy that I was, but he was like, she's progressing. She's awesome. She loves us. And I was like, cool, let's go chat with her. She opened up the door, and she had like a silk whatchamacallit, like not gown, like
That gown?
or that gown sort of thing, on, and yeah, it was. She had candles burning in the back. Place smelled good. She had her bedroom door open, where there was a photo of her in the nude, and she just like opened the door, and her eyes went big, and she went, "Where's the other one?" I was like, "He's in a different area today, and I'm visiting today." And she was like, "Okay, hold on." Shut the door, blew out all the candles, and was like, "Come on in." And that completely different attitude. And what's crazy to me is we went in and we were like, we can't just not do the lesson. She welcomed us into her home, even though it's so obvious. Like,
Also, Gressie, we have to have a meeting. Got to get her to church.
yeah, she's escalating. She's almost there.
Yeah, let's get her on date too. Yeah. Adam Broud. No, I'm excited because, like, I mean, when you reached out, it was fun because, like, there's so many things that, like, if you follow me on if you were to see my feed on Instagram, you'll see the things I follow versus the things I follow on, like, the podcast one. And, like, one is, like, a good handful of, like, I mean, local comedians to begin with, but also, like, things that are post-Mormon, like, not super strong, but, like, let's just make fun of this press.
Say any of that's me too.
Yeah, and so it was always fun to see that and see what you guys have built and done. So when you reached out, I was like, yep.
Oh, thank you.
Come on in.
Yeah, it's been so fun. I mean, yeah, it's always tricky. It's so interesting stand up in Salt Lake because there's so much pressure to like not talk about local stuff because people feel like everyone's going to talk about local stuff. And then when you do talk about, I mean, mostly like religion and stuff like Mormonism, but when you do talk about Mormonism and stand up, it's so interesting how many local comics are like, I can't really do that. Isn't everyone going to do that? I'm like, not everybody does it. Not everybody does it the same way. And then they always will say something effective like, but you can't travel with that, right? And it's so funny because as soon as I go out of state, people want to know about Mormonism more than they want to know about Mormonism in Utah.
Yeah.
Like there's some crowds that I'll start on a Mormon joke and I'll stop because I'm like, you guys want to break from this.
Yeah.
Whereas I did Toronto not too long ago and somebody interrupted my set because they're like, can you please just talk about soaking? And I was like, sure. And I had to like do a complete pivot and like remember my soaking jokes that I'd written and performed a little bit and stuff like that. But it was so funny how, the perception where people are like, no one wants to hear about Salt Lake. And I'm like, you don't understand how crazy and interesting people find this place.
Totally.
As soon as I say, literally in Toronto, as soon as the person announced, like, we've got a visiting comic here from Salt Lake City, everyone in the crowd went, oh. And I was like, never has Salt Lake City gotten like a, oh, as far as I have been aware for anywhere I've ever traveled. But yeah, when I travel, people want to hear about it more than anything else.
Well, it's interesting to see how there's this lens that's cast on it now that it's like this Sauron eye. All of a sudden, Frodo put on the ring in Utah, and Sauron's like, listen,
oh yeah,
because like you have, I mean, the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, you had Housewives, you had Sold on SLC, which just came out. That 4 or 5 different documentaries under the banner of heaven.
Yeah,
the white
Brigham Young one that's going on. Did you say that one already? One that was on Netflix? Forget what that's called.
The one like the Pioneers.
Yeah,
that one. Oh, pretty cool. What was it called?
I don't remember what that's called. But there's that. And then people start looking at it and they start digging further back and they're like, have you heard of this show called My Husband is Gay? And stuff like that. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah.
That was like TLC, I think, forever ago. And it's like, yeah, that's Utah.
That's like, so I get, people can see all this exposure other places. Then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we caught a live one or something else about it.
Well, especially, I mean, in comedy, so much of stand-up is centered around New York and then secondarily LA and Austin, maybe even the second at this point. But it's like LA and New York, especially if you get a traveling comedian. I gotta say, I get so tired of hearing New York comedians come in from New York and just talk about New York. They're like, I see it in movies, I see it on the TV shows. The last thing I want to hear is you talk about this place that, quite frankly, no one here cares about.
Yeah.
I know you think everyone wants to be there.
I went there once on my senior trip for high school.
Yeah. I mean, I go to New York all the time and I love New York, but I am like, no one here cares that the subway kind of sucks sometimes, dude. Nobody cares at all. And so I think also people, when I go to a show, I think sometimes they're like relieved to hear about something that's, they know a kernel of it and they want to know a lot more about it. And it's something that they don't feel like they have easy access to the way that they would like a comic from New York or something like that.
I mean, especially in such like an easy way of comedy. Like there's no other way to hear about any topic. Let's just do this in a jestful manner.
Oh yeah. And I mean, most of comedy church, people sometimes ask where they're like, so you guys just, when they don't know the show, I think their expectation is we're going to go up there and we're going to be like, here's a joke. Fuck God. Do you get it? And it's like, no, we actually make jokes. And a lot of them are centered around like my past and my co-host Greg, his past and stuff like that. So most of the time we're just making fun of ourselves. And then it happens that if a religious person listens to it and they're like, hey, I identify with that, so you're making fun of me. And I'm like, yeah, sorry, man. But you could equally just be like, I hear what you're saying, I don't identify with that. And I'd be like, great, then it's not about you. That's fine too.
Yeah, you probably don't get it. That's okay.
Or you just don't get it. Yeah, that's true. Maybe it is about you. You just didn't understand.
It's interesting to be like,
yeah.
I mean, especially like, I mean, on the topic of like Mormonism and jokes and comedy, like the thing that's always funny is whenever the Book of Mormon comes to Salt Lake.
Oh yeah, I just went to that.
It's so like,
I got recognized in the crowd by someone. It was my favorite way I've ever been recognized in public. Yeah, I started walking past and someone goes, hey, wait, aren't you that comedy church boy? I'm like, comedy church boy? Deacon, thank you very much. But it was good, but I've never been called a comedy church boy.
You're the comedy church boy, aren't you?
Like, it was very fun though. But yeah, the musical comes through. It's so great.
And like, because I saw it in Salt Lake the first time, I mean, years ago now, but it's funny to compare notes with people who saw it like in other places, even New York, because so many of the jokes just like don't land in the same way.
Oh, really?
Whereas in Salt Lake, every joke lands, everybody gets everything.
Sure.
But at the same time, when I went, I mean, I was sitting there and then all of a sudden I see this couple kind of get up and I was like, they're not coming back. Yeah, so they didn't come back. I was like, yeah, you could do a little research of what you're getting yourself in. At least listen to the soundtrack.
This is a horrible adaptation.
This doesn't align with what I believe in at all.
Yeah. There's a lot of things like that, though. I think it's so interesting. I went to Wait, Don't Tell Me, NPR. Wait, Don't Tell Me. You listen to that at all. It's like the game show about the news and stuff like that. Tame, fun NPR. Yeah. Anyway, at the top of theirs, they were like, Salt Lake is maybe our favorite place to come. And the reason is because we never feel more hardcore than going to Salt Lake. Everywhere else we go, it's always like the elderly in the audience and people's progressive grandfather donating $5 out the door and stuff. Like, but Salt Lake's the only place that this is a protest to come to an NPR show. So everyone shows up tatted and like decked out in piercings and stuff. They're like, we feel so cool. We come to Salt Lake. Because, yeah, I'm like, that's the culture. You got to stand out. You got to, like, choose it.
Yeah, welcome to our little club.
Yeah.
It's NPR, bitch. Yeah. I listen to so much NPR, you don't even know.
Yeah. I've got the Patreon little QR code tattooed right here.
Scan here to subscribe.
Yeah.
So I was like, not born and raised in Salt Lake, but did you come here for BYU or get a bunch? Okay.
Yeah. I grew up, like, super poor. And so no one I knew like really had gone to college or anything like that. So the only thing I ever remember hearing about college, like I remember I was always in the class, like the accelerated classes and stuff. So the expectation was everybody go to college. But I also think a part of that is because, rich kids can afford services that put them into those accelerated classes.
Crazy California.
Yeah. And so I think I just always got like grouped in with these kids where the assumption is like, everybody got money here, so you're going to go to college. But at the same time, I always remember people talking about how expensive it was. And, my family finances were my responsibility as well as a kid. So as soon as I hear something's expensive, I was like, oh, I get it. Not for me. So I had no plans really to go to college. Honestly, I thought I was going to die on my mission. I felt like I had a premonition that I was like, I'm supposed to die on my mission. That's what's supposed to get a good out. And I'm going to go straight to the celestial kingdom. Literally. And I was like, nice. I was stoked for it. I was like, hey, this is the lot that I've pulled in life, and it's okay. Then I ended my mission. I was like, what the fuck did I do? I just thought it was supposed to happen. That I was one of your favorites. You didn't need to kill me. And so I had no plans really to go to college. But then growing up as well, always hearing about BYU, it was the only college that was ever referenced as being cheap. People always loved that because that's also kind of Mormon culture. It's being cheap. And so it was always like, yeah, it's so cheap. It's so affordable, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, oh, I guess that's the only college I can go to, right? And I didn't know anybody else who'd really gone to college. My sister went to college for like a semester at BYU at that point. And so she was like, I can help you apply. She did because I didn't even know how to do that. So yeah, so I went to BYU because it was so cheap. And did my undergrad there, moved away I did a year of a PhD in psychology out in Florida. And then I moved back because it didn't go well. Then my advisor checked out, was just like, you're on your own. I was like, I just got here. So I did a year and was like, never mind, I'm not going to do it. Moved back. did my MBA as well at BYU, because one more time, MBAs are crazy expensive, but not at BYU. And yeah, so I did there, moved away for a job, moved back for a different job, ended up getting fired from that job and started doing comedy full time instead. So it's been like coming back and forth and stuff. But yeah, originally got here for the school. And I just made all my connections here, you know? Like people sometimes are like, you do comedy, why didn't you leave and stuff? Or like, because anytime I have left, people immediately are like, I'm going to find you a reason to come back here. And they do. It's very compelling. And I have great friends, and it fucking sucks to have such good. Yeah. No, they're awesome. Yeah. But it just keeps pulling me back in. And I'm not sad. I'm never sad for it. Like Utah's great. And I wish Utah had more pride in itself, honestly. I've lived in the like main states that I've lived were outside of Utah was Ohio and Oregon. And it's so wild to me seeing, especially Ohio, the amount of like pride people have in Ohio is nuts. Like to this day, I can tell you like the names of the presidents. There's 8 of them that were Ohioans. Like I can tell you the state, bird, animal, drink, like all this stuff. Like it's crazy how indoctrinated they are to just be like, Ohio's the best, fuck Michigan, sort of like attitude about everything. I didn't ask you at the beginning if I can swear, but you haven't stopped me. So I was swearing.
Yes, no. As long as it's not like a middle schooler swearing.
Oh, okay. Sort of shit. And so yeah, just all that pride. And then Utah, it's yeah. I mean, I assume it's just because of the clash of cultures most there, but it does like hurt my heart sometimes that Utah, more than any place else I've lived, has this like no profit in their own country sort of mentality where like everyone loved Imagine Dragons, and then they got popular and people are like, God, I hate Imagine Dragons. Or yeah, kind of almost anything. If it grows and Crumble, I think is a great example, where it's like homegrown, and as soon as it started getting bigger, people are like, they're not even good. And I'm like, it's literally sugar, salt, and fat. You can say you don't like it, but you can't tell me it's not good. That's
we're biological programmed to enjoy that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, just tell me you're anorexic. It's like, there's no way that you can explain to me. This is mix up.
Well, I feel like people even pulled the like, of Mice and Men on Cafe Rio. Like everybody used to be like, Cafe Rio is the greatest thing in the world.
And it is so good. That's what's crazy. I'm like, this is a fast casual place that kicks ass compared to so many other fast casual places where people are like, other places are like, Raisin Cane's is finally here. I'm like, you're gonna put fucking Raisin Cane's up against the God sent manna from heaven Cafe Rio. That's what you're gonna do. But yeah, wait for that. Okay, yeah.
It's when you block someone, delete their number, and block.
Yeah. So it is. It's wild to me that people just, yeah, for whatever reason, if it comes from Utah, it's like got a tinge of,
And it's like, it's always like this apologetic, like because like I love living here. I've gone through my whole process of like, do you want to be here? Don't want to be here? Don't want to be there? Don't know if I'll be there. Like I'm in. I'm sold. But then like there's so many people who have this like apologetic like, went from each other. Yeah, sorry, it's so weird. Yeah, sorry, this happens. Yeah, sorry. Then like, which is honestly like fitting for the culture. I'm like, oh, I don't want to make people come to us. Should apologize everything away.
That's true. Yeah, I'm not gonna fix it at the same time. I will apologize too that this exists. But like, yeah, that's very true. And especially compared to like the place that I call like home that I say I'm from is Southern Oregon, which is like
what part?
Medford. Okay, Medford area. So it's like super conservative area in a blue state and all this sort of stuff. I mean, they've got all sorts of weird stuff down there. They want to separate from the state of Oregon with the northern part of California and create a new state called State of Jefferson. You listen to NPR in the Rogue Valley where I'm from in Medford. They even say, they started off, they go, it's a great morning here in the state of Jefferson, the Jefferson Public Radio. That's what they call it.
Interesting.
I'm like, that's pretty weird, right? Like, that's crazy. No one apologized. So for it. If you tell someone like, so you guys want to separate, be your own state for seemingly not very good reasons, people are like, fun, huh?
Are you against it?
Yeah, people, not even argumentative. People are like, yeah, pretty fun.
Could you imagine we just one day they're like, whoever's president's like, you know what? We're taking applications. Whoever wants to break off, whoever wants to start their own thing, you got like 30 days to put in a proposal.
Dude, it might happen.
But we'll tell you surprised.
But yeah. But for Utah, yeah, I'm always surprised how apologetic people are for about everything except the skiing, I will say. No one apologizes for that. Yeah, I've never seen Utahns throw hands the way they will as soon as someone's like, there's pretty good skiing in Colorado, right? They're on the other side of the Rockies, sure. You think that wet shit cuts it?
All of a sudden, you just see this like parking lot of people start entering. this guy's saying the
girls loosening their ties. Like, tell the wife I'm going to be late for sacrament.
Where'd you get that crowbar? Yeah, that's one thing you do not like. It's on our license plate. You can't disagree. That's pretty much signing in blood.
Yeah, it's like the one thing. But yeah, and it genuinely makes me sad because I think there's so much good stuff here. Comedy included. The comedy scene in Salt Lake as like a city. Because I mean, like I said, I travel around.
Yeah. And I hear that a lot from traveling comedians. Because like there's a lot of places like, yeah, cool. Like obviously go to New York or LA or like any of the major cities. Like, yeah, there's places you go. There's going to be shows. But
yeah,
it's nice with Salt Lake where it's like this kind of direct path through that a lot of people go to. And then like what? I mean, Keith Stubbs is done with Wise Guys and just get it. I was like, oh, it's just amazing.
Absolutely. And to have like a local scene that's that strong. I've been surprised when I've been traveling and people are like, we've got a great local opener for you. And it almost never works out. Like, no offense to so many cities out there, but so many of the comedians who get stage time, it seems, even in these seemingly big cities, and I think what it is, if I had a hypothesize, not like that's, but I'm going to pretend like it. I think what it is I think these other big cities, no one gives a shit if they leave. Like, I don't think they have the familial cultural bond that like Utah and Salt Lake has, because like I don't know if you go do you go generationally back Mormon?
Yeah,
you do. Okay, I don't, but my wife does.
Okay,
and so if she were to leave Utah, she is literally leaving like her family's past for forever.
Yep.
And you don't. I mean, I feel like I don't hear that when I lived in Tampa. I didn't hear it because of like, yeah, we settled Tampa.
You know those original colonies? Yeah, that's my great-great-great-great-grandfather.
Everybody flashing their tits at the Buccaneer Parade. My grandfather created ballots. One's doing that in Tampa. But Salt Lake, people are like, hey, you know, the Beehive House? I had a great-grandmother who was entrapped there, or whatever it is that then got for a story. And so it's like such a... People get tied or brought back like I do as well.
Yeah.
People build stuff here as well, the way that I don't feel like they always build in other places. And so I feel like there's these ties that like really do keep people here in a way that they don't other places. So you get these other big cities where it's like, oh, if you make it big in Phoenix, like that's another place. Like if you start making it big in Phoenix, the assumption is you just go to LA. Because why wouldn't you? You're going to come travel back to Phoenix. No one cares. Yeah, same thing. But you don't have that in Salt Lake. You have to travel pretty far if you're going to get out, and then you're like leaving everything. So instead you get these people stick around, they start building stuff. And I think it's because of that a lot of people who get really good, they're still here.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, for comedy. There are so many good comedians who compete on a national platform even, because we got like Dry Bar, right? And I think people can make the argument where they're like, well, Dry Bar is not like the best comedians out there. And I would say it doesn't matter. There's millions of people watching these people, and regardless, so often the people who move up the ranks and the views are a lot of Utah natives, or a lot of people who are kind of based out of Utah, at least for their stand-up. So yeah, the stand-up scene here is so good. It's something I'm super proud of.
Like there's one guy who I actually like got to know when I was in high school and younger, because we would ironically like rollerblade together, like Shane Dozer. And like it was weird because like I knew him when I was in like middle school and high school.
He's living in like New Jersey or something, right?
I can't remember. Sorry, it's hard to follow.
Yeah. He still pops up here every now and then.
Oh yeah.
I was at a show and he walked past the window. We were like, "Are you trying to find this?" And he was like, "Nope, usually yes,
but not tonight." He's a hard guy to miss. Yeah. But so I like knew him like through this one aspect, go on my mission and come back, and I'm like, oh, it's that guy. That because again, hard to miss. Hard to miss. Yeah. And if you don't know why he's hard to miss, just go look up his Instagram and it'll make sense. But
severely tattooed and now Catholic. That was a surprise. Anyway,
I thought it was a joke.
So too, till he posted the baptism, and I was like, oh, why not?
Even then, I was like, still a
little bit. You're like, I know enough about Catholicism. Maybe this is a joke.
Like one of my friends, I'll never forget this. It was like 10-ish years ago. There was this guy I did summer sales with in college. Like he was in my fraternity. We were great friends, like roommates through it all.
Yeah, there was a Utah studies for all. Yeah, that was like you're using keyword searches.
Mark that off your bingo cards, seriously. And so we come back, and he had this girlfriend, but then April 1st comes along.
Okay.
They post a thing on Facebook, because the Facebook was still a main thing then. And they're like, hey, we're pregnant and we're getting married.
Yeah.
And I text him like, bullshit, April Fools, like you would never, blah, blah. And he's kind of like, yeah, man, it's happening. I'm like, yeah, talk to you tomorrow.
I love that.
And then like a week later, I went down to City Creek and I saw his bride-to-be. And I was like, random not named girl. Good joke. Like, really was shoddy already. Well, then that's what she goes. She's like, Eric, look at me. I'm pregnant. And I was like, you're like, my bad. But also, like, you're bad too.
No, I got to say, when I can, I try to announce big news on April 1st.
Yeah.
I think that's the new meta joke is you wait, you save whatever you got and you just test it out. That's how you test waters. Because if you come out with it where you're like, hey, I'm getting remarried because I got this one pregnant or whatever. And people are like, ha ha ha. Can you imagine? I would hate you forever. And you're like, yep, big joke.
Never
real big joke. Anyway, 2 months from now, I've got an announcement like, let's see you guys with a slightly different story to it. But yeah, I think I've announced when I was moving. I've announced when I'm moving back. I think I announced when I was starting my PhD as well on April 1st every single time, just so people could be like, what's going on there? Like,
wait till April 2nd, like us to find out. But do you ever watch Rick and Morty?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was watching I always go back to Rick and Morty. I don't have anything to watch. And it was in the episode where Jerry gets dropped off at like the Jerry daycare. Yeah. And we'll get back to it. And like he's there, he's like, what am I doing? And all the Jerry's like, what are we doing here? They're like, oh, look, something to distract us. And they're just getting kind of. And then he's like, well, why can't I leave? Like, you can leave. Like, the door's right there. Yeah. And then he goes out and he kind of gets lost in his like alien world and comes back. And I feel like that's how it is with a lot of people leaving Salt Lake, where it's like, I can leave whenever I want to. Like, yeah, you can leave whenever you want to. And then people either go and they're like, oh, it's hard to make friends with people. Oh, I don't know what to do. I'm going to come back. Well, then there's like, I mean, for me, for example, I left. I was like, yeah, if you're with my family in Utah, is actually pretty great. Whereas when I was like a kid, it was always this, I'd see people move who are older. I'm like, you got it. You got out. You did it.
Yeah.
And then they come back. I'm like, idiot, like you escaped. Like, why would you come back? Yeah. And the next thing you know, like you become that person. You're like, listen, you don't know how good you got until you're in Tampa.
Yeah. Until you're in Tampa. Well, I think especially if you live in Salt Lake, right? I think I had the added benefit that I lived in pretty rural areas for the most part. So like, I remember moving from Ohio to Oregon, and when we got to Medford, we were like, "You Jefferson?" Yeah, that's right. When we got to the state of Jefferson, when we got to Medford, we were so stoked because I was like, "Oh my gosh, they have a mall here? We're at the big time, guys!" Like I was thrilled because we used to have to drive 45 minutes to go to a mall. We had to drive like 25 minutes to get to a Walmart and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I was like, "The big city, Medford, Oregon, amazing!" sort of situation. But I assume if you live in a city where you would expect to have more things, and Salt Lake is like a smaller city, you know, and it's not very like, I mean, a critique for Salt Lake is I wish that the downtown that was like more centralized in some of its stuff. Like Boise is crazy to me. I was up in Boise this last summer doing a show, and I don't know how much time we spent in Boise.
Decent enough.
But their downtown is like compact in terms of like, here's a brewery next to a brewery next to whatever cool thing you have. Like it's a series of 8 blocks that just all their cool shit stays on. And I'm a little envious of that sometimes. So I can kind of get where I'm like, yeah, there's stuff to improve in Salt Lake. But for the most part, 100%. You leave and then people are like, oh, it was, honestly, I gave it a lot of shit, but it really was just a city. In some ways. A pretty good one. So yeah, I love it. I think it's great.
So I'm always curious of how comedians get into comedy. Because, I mean, there's always the people that's like, hey, you're pretty funny. You should do stand-up sometime.
Sure.
And I mean, and every white guy in his 30s usually is like, listen, I'm funny. I could do this.
Yeah, it doesn't stop in the 30s. Boy, howdy. Yeah, every time I do it, people, I've always thought about doing this. Which is so funny to me. It is always funny to me, anyone who's like, I've always thought about doing it. I'm like, you don't need a degree for this. You don't need literally anything to do this. It's the same way where people are like, he's a professional comedian. I'm like, no one gave me a certification of comedian. I just started talking and didn't shut up. That's all that happened, right? So it is always, yeah. So it's always funny to me where it's like, there's literally nothing that has such a low barrier of entry outside of just, probably ego, I guess. I assume that's why most people don't try it if they really want to. I think they're just scared where they're like, but what if they reject me? And I'm like, that's what you're signing up for. More than making people laugh, you're signing up for rejection and figuring out the core puzzle pieces that like where you aren't rejected, and then you're putting them all together and being like me. Like that's all it is, sort of thing. But anyway, I got started, tale as old as time in some ways, middle child of 5, and so you gotta be loud. And and I was definitely always like the funny kid growing up and stuff. But I first did stand up when I was in high school. and this was something very cool that Oregon does for speech and debate of all things. There's a group called After Dinner Speaking, and it's just stand-up comedy. The way they described it was like, you have to write a 6-minute original monologue that is comedic in nature on one topic. It's like, oh, you want a 6-minute set. That's all of it.
Here comes my bit.
Literally. And so I wrote mine and I performed it and it went well. And then I kept modifying it. And because it was like a high school speech and debate competition, you go school to school to school performing the same bit and competing. And you get feedback from people about what went well and what didn't go well and blah, 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 blah. And so I did it all that year and I went to state and I got second place, lost to the kid who was performing in front of a bunch of teenagers. And his whole bit was about having the sexual disease talk with your parents. And it's tough to...
Especially Mormon, if you're like, I can't do this.
Yeah, like he said vaginitis. How am I supposed to stop that in front of a bunch of prepubescent teens? Like, this can't happen. But it was very funny. He did a great job. And so I started there. And then I always did theater, and I always did like theater competitions and performing and all that sort of stuff. Did improv in high school. At 18, a bunch of friends gave me money to buy a plane ticket, and I went and auditioned for Last Comic Standing in New York, and failed horribly at it because I was 18 and I only had one 6-minute bit, and I was like, I'm gonna make my dreams come true off this 6-minute bit. And so I went up. I did terrible, and then went on a mission. I did pray in line though. I literally prayed. I was like, if success in this will keep me from serving mission, please help me just fail so that I'm not even tempted to not do that. And then I failed, and I was like, God, it was meant to be. It's definitely not that I'm not funny enough. It's definitely that God knows I'm one of his warriors, his chosen disciples. And so I went on a mission, came back, went to BYU. And at the time, there wasn't really much by way of stand-up in Utah outside of Wise Guys. Just 45 minutes away, didn't have a car. Also, the open mic back then, you had to show up at like 4 o'clock and to be able to perform at 8 o'clock. And I had classes, and I'm like, I can't be waiting in the cold for hours and hours. I just can't do it. So, but what they did have in Provo was Comedy Sports, which is improv. And it was very good back in the day. I haven't been a long time, so I'm not sure now, but it was really good back in the day. And I loved it. It was so fun. And I just saw them, and I was like, I'm going to do that. Started taking classes, started doing improv, kept doing improv, went to Florida. When I went to Florida, I tried doing improv. There wasn't a good improv scene. So I jumped on Twitter and just started writing jokes constantly. And since my advisor was checked out, I was like, this is my new job, is just writing jokes on Twitter. So I did that. I got pretty big on Twitter, moved back to Utah, and suddenly all the people who were like, I felt like a lot of the comedians were like, yeah, Adam's great. Is he like great? I don't know, but he's great. And I was always like, it's just because I'm young. I promise. I think I'm very funny and I'm confident in it. Yeah. I felt like I came back, and as soon as people were like, this motherfucker's getting published by BuzzFeed every week, like he can hang, sort of thing. So it was kind of nice. But yeah, so I started doing that, and at that point, I just converted all my like a lot of my tweets into one-liners. And when random stand-up nights would come up at the Improv Club, I would do them, and it would go well. Then people invited me to start doing stand-up more. I started doing stand-up at BYU at their Humor U Club, which is a fantastic club. And then yeah, kind of went from there. Where as soon as I started doing it at BYU, I started taking it a little bit more seriously. And when I graduated and moved to Arizona, I did some improv, but I started doing equal amounts stand-up. And I was like, I think this is what I do now. I mean, it's just stand-up. I think it's just comedy. So anyway, well, that was boring. But, it's just like incremental sort of things of, yeah, it started off with just being funny. But I think what I've really loved is I always have loved writing, like a lot. Like I wrote my first 15-page story when I was in first grade because we were asked to write a 1-page story and I just couldn't help myself. Most of it was plagiarized, but it's whatever. And so if I wrote 15 pages and I couldn't wait to tell a story, I feel like I've always been like that, where I just really love writing. And so it's just been a part of me. Even when I haven't been performing, like Twitter, I was just like, well, I'm going to at least be writing constantly. And yeah, and so that's just turned into the comedy.
Well, I love that it's been this kind of side thing until it got to a point where you're like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I think we do this.
Well, I literally, I had a conversation with my wife finally where I was like, okay, so I've got a graduate degree. We just spent a lot of money on that. I don't think I can compete. I was like, I've gotten to the rank in the corporate world where this kind of needs to be the only thing I do if I'm going to compete. Like if I'm going to be like gung-ho, let's succeed in this, it's got to be the only thing I do.
Yeah.
Comedy-wise, I was like, I'm kind of getting gigs that are good enough now that if I come a little ill-prepared, it's very noticeable. I kind of have to go all in if I'm going to compete over there as well. And I wasn't sure what to do. And thankfully, yeah, we pulled the trigger, and it just seemed like comedy. Every time I gave it an inch, it gave even more back to me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, if that's what I really love. Because once again, yeah, growing up poor, I didn't know anybody who was a comedian or a writer. Most of the time, that's Nepa baby shit. You know, that's like someone's parents going to fund this.
Yeah.
And I remember even doing it, and people were like, well, you could probably like ask your parents for some money, right? And I'm like, my parents would ask me for money, I think, before I might ask them for money. And so, yeah, I just kind of kept giving it a little bit more. And then as soon as I reached that breaking point, I was like, well, what's it going to be? And it was comedy, and it's been so good.
Yeah.
It's been so fun.
But it's like, it's so fun when like you start building your own thing, because again, like you could go work in corporate America, you could have your director, VP title, whatever. And like whatever you do, like isn't really going to make as much of an impact as much as you showing up to a show and killing it. And then all of a sudden you get invited to these 3 shows and those killing, like, hold on, like this matters. But then also if you're doing what makes you happy in yourself, then you're going to do better at it. And it's going to give you so much energy compared to like seeing how much more you can optimize your spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So,
well, and also I'm a big believer that if someone really wants to do something, you should and be happy. I think you should try to find something where you enjoy the shit work of it as well.
Yeah.
And that can be hard for like a lot of jobs. Like every job's a job. And there's obviously parts, even being a comedian, I'm like, I don't like this. But like I said, the thing that I do love is I love sitting down and I love just writing jokes and I love thinking about it. And that's something that I think a lot of people think they would like, but when people think about comedy and they're like, oh, you must love comedy. You must love going on stage and making people laugh. And like, oh, of course. But that's just human nature. That's basically telling.
So we all love being validated by large groups of people for they were working hard on.
Yeah, you might as well tell someone like, you're the type of person who likes a good meal, I bet. You're like, there's someone who doesn't, it doesn't make sense. But the other part, even comedians who I see who are good and they just can't do the writing or they don't want to do the writing and we just like regretted it. I'm like, you should go find something else. Like that's kind of what the real job is. The real job is sitting and writing way more than most other people and then editing it down to a few small parts and taking that on stage. Like that's the real job. And if you can love the part that's like the thing that everybody else looks at and they're like, that sounds incredibly tedious and arduous and awful. And you're like, pretty fucking sick, bro.
I love it.
Yeah, it's like, then take that. And I had people like that in the corporate world even because I worked in HR and I did that because I wanted to make a difference. And then I was like, oh, HR, you don't get to make a difference. They sell that to you. It's generally not what happens. But I had other people in the HR world who the minutiae and stuff fascinated them. It interested them. They found value in it. And I was like, I just can't compete with someone like that. How can I compete with a guy who, when I've got 2 70-year-old men who are bickering and calling each other the N-word, even though they're both white, because one of them parked in the other one's spot and we don't have assigned parking spots, but they both know whose spot is which, and he did that to piss the other one off. How am I supposed to look at that? If I look at that and I'm like, you thieves, just make amends. And another guy looks at that and he's like, oh, I love this. I love to get to the bond difference. Yeah. I will never beat that guy. And I don't want to. No, I don't even want to anyway.
So what was it like? Because, I mean, so much of your experience up until you're like, all right, I think I'm going to do this has been, I mean, local places wherever you were. But what is that experience like when you go from, I mean, again, playing at the places that you know, communities you're around, to being like, all right, time to hit the road and hunting yourself like on enemy, like behind enemy lines?
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely be intimidating. I think the big intimidation piece is usually that, you know, anywhere you go, people will talk about what the culture is, but the culture of wherever you're at doesn't necessarily reflect the culture of the room that you're in. You know what I mean? Because like, yeah, you can go to backwoods wherever, which is a fair amount of places I perform. And everyone will be like, you gotta be careful around here. Like, it's a really conservative place, blah, 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 blah. But then it turns out that maybe in that spot, the only people who are really supporting the arts are everybody who's left-lit. So you get up on stage and maybe you're like, you know what? I'm not going to do my pro-abortion bit because I don't want to deal with this shit. So I'm just not going to do it. Then you get to the end of your set and people are like, we thought you'd be a lot more liberal. We were excited for it. And you're like, oh, God damn it. So more abortion, more abortion. And so there's maybe moments like that I think I just had to learn that level that was always the thing that I think intimidated me the most. Because something I pride myself in as a comedian is I feel like I'm very good at hitting whatever demographic you've got. So like I've got sets that I've worked and I write a lot. So I've got a lot of different sets that if you hire me for something where it's like, hey, families including kids are going to be here. I'm like, oh, okay, I know where I'm.
More abortion.
And the parents cheer and the kids are like, I knew it. But yeah, so there's like things like that. And then compare that to like, I'm never going to change who I am. Definitely not going to do that. I'm not going to get in front of a bunch of Republicans and be like, actually, Trump's not that. My favorite bit to do in front of Republicans is that I have about Trump getting shot and how it would have been great because it would have been if like that shot had been made, the kid who did it, the assassin, the first guy, he was cut from his high school rifle team. So my whole joke is if he'd made that shot, that would have been the greatest underdog story in sports history. Like, that's amazing. And I love telling that to Republicans because people are like, all right, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I do love sports more than I love politics. It's the one thing. And so it's fun.
I like Michael Jordan and his high school team.
Yeah, we didn't make the cut. That's the follow-up jokes that I talked about. There you go. I give you double lots of credit. Yeah. So there's maybe like that little intimidation piece. But outside that, once you've been doing it for a while, I feel like I'm pretty good at reading rooms, and the improv background helps out a lot as well. There's been plenty of shows where I've like stopped and I've been like, something's weird. What is this? And sometimes it's like, I don't know. It'll be like, oh, you told a joke and everybody's just thinking about this local thing. Like that's happened before where it's like, oh, you mentioned this. This just happened here. And then I'm like, oh, let's talk about that. And then I pivot it into what I wanted to talk about, stuff like that. So I think I've been doing it long enough that there's not really any place that I feel too nervous about. And I've got my jokes that I know they work pretty much with whoever, wherever for the most part, and things like that. But it's definitely intimidating at first. But that's why comedy's got features and hosts and stuff so that you can work all that shit out. Yeah. And ideally, as soon as you're the main act, it's someone who gets it. Yeah. Hey.
It's all like I always laugh about you talk to most people and the thought of having a microphone in their hand in front of people is the most terrifying thing in the world.
Yeah.
And like I'm not that way. Like
I literally get depressed if I'm not performing. Like there's been periods of my life when I was dating my wife and I was at BYU and I fell into like a deep depression. I was like, I don't know what's going on. And then it was like real stupid, but I finally was like, I think it's that I'm just not performing and I feel like I'm missing the part of me. And then I started performing. I was like, I'm back, baby. That's literally all it was.
She's like, actually, now I actually do like you. Let's get married. You're like, everything works when I'm telling jokes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like I'm the same way. Like if I were to be at a jazz game and they're like, Eric Bilson, can you come down and take the mic and just talk for 20 minutes? I'm like, could I? Sure. Yeah. But like, if we all, I guess you did always kind of feel that way. Especially if you're the middle of five, like you're used to just being loud and wanting to give that attention.
Yeah, and I felt like I was always doing a bit as well. Like I was very much so a kid who would like take on characters and just be goofy and stuff. Like if you look through a lot of the like my yearbooks, like yearbook photos and stuff, they've got like, oh, these kids are studying and these kids are doing there, and here's Adam wearing 20 different tutus for no goddamn reason. No one asked him to do this, but he's wandering the halls dressed like this. And so it was always just bits and goofing and not having a whole lot of pride in how I was perceived, just wanting to make people laugh and have fun sort of thing. Yeah. So yeah, yellow personality if we want to go to the color.
I can agree to that. Like, cause like I always loved, voices and bits, and like if there was ever any sort of costume, anything, I was in.
Yeah.
There's one year, one of my friends who had this Halloween party over in like Olympus Cove. And I really didn't have like a costume. So I was like, I'm just going to go and I'm going to be the best fucking nerd possible. So it has this name tag and it's Glenn. And hello, my name's Glenn. I'm here for the party. Where do we go down? Like to the point where people are like, hey, is this kid like, do we need to be like nice to him because his parents dropped him? Is it all right? Or I don't know. And so I ended up getting like second place in the costume contest only to lose to a kid who was in blackface.
Oh, no. No. You did go all in a way. You risked it all.
Oh, yeah.
He risked it all.
They really didn't have pictures or else I'd have lost it all, but he risked it all. Yeah, do I get the trophy back? Like, seriously. He got canceled. I get it. Zed G. Bush gets his trophy back. I deny. But so So you end up obviously coming back here.
Yeah.
And I mean, walk me through how, I mean, you started your own comedy church.
Or yeah, about Cincio. So I guess I started doing stand-up like at Humor U, and that's when that started progressing, moved away, came back, started taking more seriously. I worked for Studio C as a writer for a season.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Which was like the first glimpse into like, this could be a career sort of thing. Yeah, I was there for the very last season that the whole cast was on.
Fun.
Unfortunately, didn't work. Cool.
What do you mean SNL's not going to hire me?
More like, what do you mean you guys are all quitting? I just got here. So sad. Glad that they got to do what they wanted to do, but I was like, oh no. But yeah, so I like wrote for Studio C, moved away, came back, was doing all that stuff. Yeah, I'd left the church. When was it? I left the church while I was living in Arizona. I think it was like October of 2019. I'm remembering right. And then, pandemic happened, had the whole thing where I'm like, was this my fault? All that sort of stuff. Is this the end of types? And I endured to almost the end. What did I do? But I moved back, was still doing stand-up, and Greg Kyte, another local comedian who's co-host on a comedy church. Sorry. I've got allergies.
I'm the same way. It's been destroying me.
I hate it because when we don't have a dish, I'm like sucking my snot and everybody knows what you're doing. And I'm like, you're right. I'm a disgusting human being and we're all just tubes. Sorry, but that's human nature.
Trying to get this down the tears a little further.
And chin tubes. Yeah, stick it out a little further. So anyway, he approached me and I felt like I was at this point in my comedy where I'm like, I need something to break through. And my hope was that I could be taken a little bit more seriously by just being a guest because I'd heard about his show. I was like, I hope he just has me on. And he invited me over to his house. I was like, sick. He's going to ask me to be a guest on the show. And he instead was like,
so when he comes out in a silk robe and the candles,
he did. And he was like, how bad you want it, baby? And I was like, bad enough, daddy. And it's been a beautiful relationship ever since. No, he invited me in. He was like, tell me a bit about what's going on. And we didn't know each other like super well, but just definitely not well enough for him to invite.
But you knew a lot about each other.
We knew of each other. We'd been on shows. We were friendly. We both liked each other's comedy. I ran an open mic in Provo. He lives in Orem. It was like the only valid open mic outside of Salt Lake, basically, and stuff like that. And so, yeah, we both knew and liked each other, but we didn't know each other super well. But yeah, he brought me in. He was like, hey, here's the thing. I've got my show, Comedy Church. I think it's good, but I think it could be great. It needs to be formatted a little tighter. I've got some ideas for what that could look like, but I also know I can't do it myself. And I think you're the guy for it. What do you think? And I was like, absolutely. And then I walked away and I was like, oh, I'm so scared. I just left Mormonism. I don't know if I can. Sort of like,
but it's the one church. I can't go back to another one. I literally had to go date and find myself.
And I was still at that point where I was like such a nice guy that I was like, I don't want to talk about the church. Everyone talks about like, well, you leave the church, but you can't leave it alone sort of thing, which is a very stupid thing to say because never have I told someone like, oh, I used to work in marketing. They're like, whoa, really can't leave marketing alone, can you? You got a whole ass resume? Oh, look at this guy. He wrote up all the stuff you can't leave alone. I'm like, it's just your life. It's all it is. I talked about my life. So, but I went back to my wife who was still in the church at the time. And I was like, this is going to be okay. She was like, I think it'll be okay as long as you're speaking your truth. You're not like just bashing for the sake of bashing. Like, yeah, I'm not that type of person. So I don't think I would. How wrong I was. No, just, so feel like I do that. But yeah, so I jumped in, we formalized it. We started doing this co-host thing. And it was just like from the first time doing it, Greg and I just like really clicked. And it's been awesome. Like he's one of my closest friends and it could have easily have just been a thing where we were friendly and business partners. And sometimes people ask, they're like, oh, so you guys like do this together? Do you see each other outside of this at all? And I'm like, yeah, I officiated his wedding with his wife. Like, we're super tight now. There's very few people in my life that I've been so much on the same page as I am with Greg. And even when we're not on the same page, we both disagree the same way. And so we can like figure it out regardless. So he's awesome. And so I just, I started doing it with him. We did at Wise Guys for a little. We stopped doing it at Wise Guys. And now we're going to go back to Wise Guys, which was very exciting. So I'm super stoked for that. So
what's the schedule for Wise Guys? Is it going to be like a consistent night or time?
Yeah, it'll be the same schedule that we've been doing, but it's the first and third Sunday of every month. And first Sunday will be at the Salt Lake location in the Rickles room until we outgrow it. Hopefully happen soon, could. But we'll be at the Salt Lake location on the first Sunday. And on the third Sunday, we'll be at the Jordan Landing location in West.
Okay. I was hoping you were going to say Ogden because you don't have to go drive all the way out there.
No, I would never. And that's a pseudo clean room as well. And it doesn't really fit our vibe or so yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so that's kind of how I got involved, and we've toured with it as well, which has been fun. Not like a ton, but there's been a couple cities. We've done Phoenix a couple times. I just got back from doing where was I? Somewhere in Texas, San Antonio, El Paso. No, yeah, El Paso. That way, Dallas, Fort Worth area. Is that El Paso?
No,
that's
where was El Paso? El Paso's like
that's on the border.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to go there for my old job with Pepsi. So I'd mix it all up. Texas fucking sucks. That's the point that I'm trying to make. It was a nice club. I do love the club out there. Mic drop that I was at. But Dallas, Fort Worth area. We've done San Diego. I did way in the backwoods, Canada. This place called Prince George. I did a show out there because there was this like psychedelic mushroom convention. I'm in. Literally, they were like, we can't pay you much. We could only pay you the cost of the flight. And I was like, sold. We'll absolutely be there.
That's jokes on you guys. I would have done it for less.
Yeah. And so we've been able to travel with it and stuff. And then obviously I travel a lot just as myself. Yeah. And all that. But yeah, it's been really good.
Which do you like doing more? Like if someone were to call you, be like, hey, we can do this one of each way. We can do the comedy church set that you know, or we can do your Adam on the road kind of typical solo show. Which one do you like doing more?
I mean, I love them both for different reasons. I think at this point now that I'm traveling, we're trying to pull back a little bit from comedy church travel and trying to do more solo stuff, mostly just because it costs a lot of money to get everybody out there. It's me, it's Greg, it's we've got a guy who does music as well. We've got an intermediary, him, every show, a special musical member. And so it's us three. And then Greg also isn't like a huge fan of traveling most of the time. It's really got to be worth his time, he feels. And anytime I do the show without Greg, I still have a good time, but not as good of time. Yep. And as soon as he's not there, I'm like, probably should have just done my own thing. So I love them both for different reasons. I do like to travel with Comedy Church, though, because we have local comedians on. And it's always fun to get, because the idea and ideal of Comedy Church is not to be Mormon-centric. Like, Greg's not Mormon. He's ex-evangelical.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he actually moved here to go to BYU because he felt he was called of God to convert Mormons to the true Jesus. Isn't that crazy? He thought he was going to go to BYU and convert everybody. And then he converted no one and became an atheist. So, yeah, it was very fun. We're writing a movie about it, actually. We're going to write a movie. And that's super stoked for that. But so, so the it's very Mormon centric when it's in Utah, which is most of the time, but it's so fun to get out and like learn about that piece. Like when I was in Backwoods, Canada, we had 3 guests on, and each one of them talked about this Christian Bible camp, this summer camp that was local. But the crazy part is all 3 of these women were like, oh yeah, I went there. But all of them, as I'm interviewing, they were all like, yeah, I've never been religious. All I did was go to this like Christian Bible camp trade. So the first one, I'm like, oh, weird. Okay, gotcha. Second one brought it up as well. I'm like, oh, you went to the same one? And they're like, oh yeah, we did. That's fun. And the third one was like, yeah, not religious. I just send my kids off to this Bible camp. I was like, what the fuck is going on? You guys don't have anything else to do in the goddamn summertime except try to either swim or walk on water? And everyone's like, honestly, yeah. And I was like, how fun to like learn about that little piece of this location, you know? So I think it's so fun when we did a show in New York. When we did a show in New York, we had 3 Jews on the show. Yep. And so that was great. So I like learned a little bit more about Judaism and all that sort of stuff and what it's like locally and what it means to people and all that sort of stuff. The show I just did in Texas, one of the guys, he's got Muslim roots, but he never like really did anything about it. And then the girl who was on the show, she had Baptist, like conservative Baptist roots. And so the hope for Comedy Church is always that we get whatever the flavor is of the locality to like talk about and discuss whatever's going on. What's religion like here for you? As what's it like here in El Paso, in Dallas, Fort Worth, El Paso. There you go. But yeah, all that sort of stuff. So I do love it for that reason, where it's like a way to learn about the local culture through a lens that traditionally people are like, don't talk about it, So I think so.
And like, and it is, much as there's been this, mass group of people leaving Mormonism than any other time in Utah history, like, yeah, there's also similar trends going on most of the country.
Everywhere.
And so,
and the things going on in Mormonism where people are like, I'm more nuanced, and blah, 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 blah. You talk to any Muslim anywhere, and it's like crazy how similar it is.
Yeah.
It's wild.
And so, and there's one time, it was when I was working at a company, it was like based on the north end of Gateway. And I had moved back from Seattle where I'd left the church there. Yeah, pretty much left the church, but then came back here where it was like, I had to make decisions. So yeah, the place I was working was pretty LDS. And even this one team I was working with had a Monday morning stand up, and they would start by like, oh, would you lead a church yesterday? And I was like, ooh. And so I started showing up with a coffee thermos. But I was, there's one time this guy comes up to me who had like worked in very different parts of things, but he comes up, he's like, hey, what are you doing for lunch? I'm like, I was going to do something. He's like, well, do you want to walk to Costa Vida and we can chat? I was like, yeah, like as long as you don't like harvest my kidneys, and yeah, that's fine. And like, we started walking. He's like, hey, so like, I know you've talked about you on a mission, you were born here, but then you're also the one organizing happy hours. Like, make this make sense. I was like, oh, like I was, and I'm not, and trying to figure out life. He's like, oh, cool. He's like, because I was raised, not Seventh-day Adventist, Jehovah's Witness. Thank you. And he's like, and like similarly, like my mom like didn't talk to me at all anymore, and I had to leave, and there was this whole ostracization of everything. I'm like, yeah, like similar to this. And so we had this moment where like we have these two high demand religions that were like, yeah, I experienced this too. Like, oh my gosh, mine was more nuanced to this.
Yeah.
And it was like wild because like none of the people I was working at that time were like more like active or like, now tell me why this is, but because they never do.
No one's asked me. No one's even invited me back to church ever, which I think is both fun and disappointing. It's like, was I the only active Mormon actually? Is that really what?
But it was interesting to have that experience because like, again, like you talk to most ex-Mormon people, especially like ex-Mormon people that are comedians, content creators, influencers, whatever. And it's like, they act like this is the only place that this happened and there's no one else that experiences this. And like, why there's nuance to it all for sure. But like, then you go talk to, like people who like used to be like Hasidic Jews or like used to be like very actively Muslim or very active Jehovah's Witness. They're like, there's a lot more than just your story.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I was kind of mentioned before we started recording, right? Of traveling around. It's so funny because in Utah, how frequently people are like, well, you can't travel with that, right? No one wants to hear about Mormonism back in New York. And they're like, people only want me to talk about Mormonism out there. As soon as I'm like, so I'm Mormon. Anyway, we talk about my kids. They're like, fuck that. Talk to 12 of them? Yeah, they're like, talk about the cult. Like, they're thrilled to talk about it. They want to know so much about it. At the same time, their tolerance level is lower. Well, we kind of mixed. In some ways, it's a little lower about surprising things where people are like, sounds like you're attacking religion. I don't like that. It's surprising to me how many people defend religion regardless of stance. Religion is outrageously protected to a level that, like, we're not going to get into that. Hit that. Everything should be debated, in my opinion. But the more surprising thing to me is the jokes that I'll tell in Utah that people are like, oh, that's offensive. You really have it out for the church. I'm like, I don't feel like I do. I feel like I'm just telling a story from my life or whatever. And then I tell that same story somewhere else for someone who's never heard of Mormonism. And they're like, I really like that you left, but you're still like not mean to them. I like that you like even talk them up like that one story. And they'll like say the same story where for them, they're like, oh, you acknowledge the weird part and you had fun in it and you're still like doing okay. This guy must really love the Mormon church. And then here I'm like, here's my weird part that I didn't really like. And people are like, he's out for the Mormon church. So it's also initially funny that way. It's like such a different picture wherever you are. But people are like fascinated by Utah in general. And it's crazy how much of Utah culture has escaped Utah. You got like trends like Utah curls. You know about those?
Yeah.
You got like the sodas, obviously. The amount of people who, I made a joke in Toronto when I was on stage where people were like, we've been watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And I was like, oh, finally. I left my 60-ounce Diet Coke in the back. I guess I can grab it. And people were just like they loved it. The cliches that, even a few years ago, if you'd mentioned soda shop, I don't think people outside of Utah are a lot, but then people hear it about here and they're fascinating. Yeah. Just fascinated by it. So yeah, it's crazy how much it escapes there. And people want to know that,
Well, even when I was in Florida for a work trip, and again, like, as soon as you tell anyone here from Utah, are you Mormon?
Yeah.
Or do you like, and you're like, yeah, like that live always, because I'm like, are you Mormon? Like, by birth or belief? And they're like, yeah. Both? I'm like, birth, yes, belief.
They're already like, this guy's weird. Yeah. This guy kept.
Bingo. So if you can get behind me being weird, then it's a good to go from there. But then it's like all the questions of like, oh, why not anymore? Like, what is this? Or like, is it really like that there? Yeah. Or have you soaked? it's crazy how many people, like, could you imagine if, like, I asked a similar question to someone, then, like, hey, have you ever, just, like, stuck it in and hung out?
Yeah.
They'd be like,
So you're Jewish, you fucked between the sheep?
yeah.
Like, that is so offensive.
But then they're like, hey, did you soak? You're like, what? Excuse me? No.
I'm surprised how many people believe it.
Well,
My whole bit about soaking is how I'm like, it's not real.
so here's my take on it is because it was, in my opinion, like an urban legend where no one did it. But I guess
Head as he goes, hell talk about it.
exactly.
I 100% agree.
And so now there's these kids like, I did it. And I was like, whoa, like it was a joke.
So when I perform my big ass soap, I have a park where I say, like, who believes that soaking's real? And people raise their hands and like, who doesn't? And then I say, and who has soaked here? And generally speaking, no one has. And then I just make a joke about that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, see, it's never like, oh, I did it. It's always like, no, I've been hearing about it, blah, blah, blah. But there's been a few times that people have done it. But I don't think I've ever had someone who has admitted to doing it and thought it was a loophole. Everybody either did it and they were like, yeah, I knew what I was doing was wrong and I was just super horny and that's what we did. Yeah. And then they're like, I mean, we started doing that and we just started having sex. Or it's someone who was like, yeah, we did it, but I didn't know what sex was at all. So if you would ask me like, is this wrong? I had no concept of sexualization. And that's even crazier if you think about it.
That it turns out I was actually just inside of her knee.
Well, just the idea that it's like, have you ever soaked? Someone's like, yeah, but not sexually. Like I had a penis inside me and I didn't know what it was doing there. Like I didn't know that's what sex was. And because it didn't feel bad. That was one lady at her show. She was like, I didn't know it was sex because I didn't feel bad. And the only thing I knew about sex is that I should feel bad doing it. And so this wasn't sex because I didn't know what it was and I didn't feel bad. So how could it be? How could it be? Can't be. Foolproof logic. Literally, it's so much. You know what I'm doing? Literally. So yeah, I don't think it's like really real, but I'm with you where I'm like, I think there's some people who've tried it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's some like BYU freshmen. Oh, you haven't done it? You should. Oh, I want to be cool.
And then I got to ask my wife to do it sometime. We're like, we just got to try this shit out. We got to figure out what the kids are talking about.
She sit there staring at each other like, yeah, we're done.
I just don't think anybody has the willpower to actually do that. The idea that you're going to go and park it, you're going to move around at the very least and make excuses, be like, oh, I just have to adjust. Oh, I have to adjust.
Stick your hand in a bag of chips and don't come out with one. Yeah, there you go.
With him.
They just keep going in and in and in.
On a little cheese dust on it, boy. Yeah. So I don't think it's real. But people want to hear about it. It really is. I mean, being from Utah right now, it's the equivalent of if there was like, as a comic, it's the equivalent of like if there was a comic from Pennsylvania who came in and they're like, oh, I'm from Pennsylvania. You're like, oh, cool. They're like, and I grew up Amish. But I don't want to talk about that. No one wants to hear about growing up Amish. Everybody grows up Amish and then leaves and chooses a different life. So I'm not going to talk about that. Wouldn't you be like, motherfucker, you better either give me the nicest chair I've ever seen, or you better talk about what it was like to be Amish. And I feel like it's almost like that. As soon as I go out and say, people are like, oh, tell me more.
Well, everybody wants to hear what they don't experience. It starts to like a novel experience.
Especially if they already know like a crumb.
Yeah.
You know, if you know a crumb, if you know a little bit about Philadelphia, like enough that it's like, are you kidding me? Sort of thing. And then someone's like, I'm from Philadelphia. You best believe you're going to be like, tell me about this. That's how people feel about Utah right now.
Well, yeah.
Friggin' everywhere.
Well, and then like you go down to St. George and like I went to the Walmart or the Home Depot and there are these women walking in bonnets and dresses.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. You give them an inch and I will.
Yeah. I'm about to do a show down in Colorado City. I'm so excited for it. I've done it once before as a feature and I'm going to headline there and I love it. It's so fun. It's wild. Last time I performed, people kept chatting through my set and I kind of got frustrated. I was like, what's going on? And so I kind of went quiet at one point, just like waiting, and I hated it because I felt like I was a substitute teacher all of a sudden. Yeah. But then I started listening to other conversations, and it was just that they were like processing my jokes. So like I've got a joke that I did down there. I don't travel with it because it's not as pertinent, but I was like, oh, I'll do this joke here about how Mormons believe that God, that there's a Heavenly Mother, but we don't really talk about the Heavenly Mother. We're not supposed to. And that's why I think Mormon God's divorced, because he's like, don't even fucking talk about that bitch, sort of attitude. Yeah. And so I did that joke, and immediately everybody laughed, and then they started talking, and I was like, why is this happening? And I started listening, and yeah, everyone was like, how do you think it actually? it is, honey, if he's let's make you wait for like set what aside, but the first one. Like they started going through the theological, pull out these scriptures. Really, they were like doing theological arguments and breakdowns because so many of them grew up in an even wilder situation than I did. Yeah. And they've got this guy up there who's like, here's a new thought that you usually would punish yourself for. Chew on that for a bit. And they immediately were like, let's talk about that. And it was almost hard where I was like, please process your emotions after the show. Give me a little bit of time. I promise there's a lot of funny things to talk about. And then afterwards you could be like, that was so good. So what about this God being divorced thing? Then you could do it.
So do we have a step-godmother? Oh, is she nice?
Let's do that activation. Step-godmother, that's fun. I'll make a sticker that says that. There you go.
It almost reminds me that you could go and complete Greg's vision. You could go down to Colorado City and be like, listen, I remember I told you about divorce God. Well, he just got remarried. Gonna step-godmother.
There's an open spot right now in that town for new cult leader. Man,
imagine like we're all out now. You saved us, and you're like, they're like, we'll follow you to the end of the world.
Family church. Well, Eric and I always joke where like if family church works out, it will eventually become a sex cult. That's the end. That's the real end goal.
I mean, that's what any church or cult leader can want.
It's the inevitable. So why not just embrace it?
It goes that way.
No, it is wild going down there as well because, man, I feel for those people. I mean, you leave Mormonism, you've got like guilt and the shame of the family ties and blah, 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 a lot of stuff to get with. But leaving that, there was like a guy down there who he left and someone was telling me that he had 4 wives and they all left the church and 2 of his wives left him. And it was like kind of devastating to him because he was like, you're my wife. And they were like, I didn't want this. And then he had to process that where he was like, I did the thing to you that I hated, that I thought, and I didn't know. And it's like, well, you didn't know. But anyway, but he still had 2 wives. And so now he's no longer religious and he's just a dude who got 2 wives and they're going on group dates still and they're trying to navigate the world, which now is kind of fine because there's enough polyamorous people yell that are like, just stop saying polygamous and say polyamorous.
Yeah, we rebranded this for you and it's a lot easier this way.
One of my newest jokes I wrote that I like a lot is I say, I really like that, we're still progressing as a country. There's words you can't say. Like, for instance, we don't derogatorily, we don't call anyone a slut. Now we just call people polyamorous. Well, I think that's nice. It's a kindness that we give people. Yeah, if they just rebrand on there, then you'll be fine. You can move to Portland. We'll love you.
You think just be normal. I'm not drinking coffee.
Yeah, it's a kid. Yeah, and they're like, good. Yeah, kombucha on for me. Yeah,
exactly. Adam, this has been amazing. I love hearing about people's stories, especially things that, because again, like I could say the same thing about you saying, or the example of a comedian from Pennsylvania, like, oh, you don't want to hear about Amish people? Or traveling with Mormon joke, people want to hear about it. But like also like, I mean, I want to hear what a comedian's life is like and what it means to get started and how you go to start a comedy church with your friends and they go from there. So keep it up. Like it's fun. And I'm someone who appreciates good content, especially good jokes. And especially when I can relate personally to them.
Yeah.
In all in that process.
That's the proudest thing I am. That's the most pride I have in comedy church is that it's like it's a space where everybody who had like, for the most part, a pretty similar background. We can all go and we're like, hey, we don't have like a agenda except to have a good time using a very specific language that you only know if you grew up in a certain way. Yeah, it's so fun to just hang out with people. And it's like, I don't have to explain myself. I can just speak the same language that they all miss.
Yeah, just deep cuts that everybody gets.
Yeah.
And because I imagine like when you travel, it's like, all right, well, here's kind of how this works.
Oh, yes. I like have to edit stuff out or I'm like, I guess I won't mention Melchizedek and this, but this would be, and I'll just say the power of God. It's like, that makes more sense. Yeah.
Well, Adam, the 2 questions I always end every episode with. Number 1, if you could have someone on the Small Lake City podcast and hear more about their story, what they're up to, who would you want to hear
from? I feel like I already maybe saw that you've got them lined up, but maybe not. Those 2, those girls from Elevate Utah.
Yeah.
Elevate Utah. Do you have them? Yeah, they already did.
Already did, yeah.
They already did. That'd be my first choice. I love what
they're right. Like
they're great. And I worked in one of my first jobs out of high school was working for the Oregon State Senate as just a page. And the stuff that comes through the state level that becomes, nationwide, all those shit that we complain about nationwide starts at the state. And America would be different if all of us held accountable our local politicians instead. So I think what they're doing is This is very important work. So yeah, that would be my first pick. But you already go. Beat you to the punch. Beat me to your punch. And yeah, I'm still going to say them.
Cool. Deal. So they're coming back. Nice. And then if people want to find more information about you, tour schedules, comedy church schedules, what's the best place to find information?
Yeah, at Adam Broud on any and all social media platforms, or at Comedy Church SLC on all social media platforms as well, I think. Pretty sure.
Deal?
Yeah.
Come see a show. It's coming to Wise Guys, first at third Sundays.
First third Sunday.
I always need a Sunday
with. And it's a different show every time. We don't repeat a single topic for the whole calendar year. So you can come back and see a completely different show, different guests.
So it's kind of like how the church, like in Sunday school, they
literally, that is what it is.
New Testament 1 year.
It's designed like a church. We have it set up. If you come, you'll see that it's like we've got it set up. Me and Greg do I can't remember what we call it. We say like not the talk, but like we're the opening ministers or whatever. We got an intermediary hymn. We've got all the discourse. Then we do a call and response toast at the end in Latin. And we translate it for everybody at the end as well. It's super fun. It's a good time.
Great agenda. No, I'm excited. I'm coming, and I won't have any theological conversations, and then I'll set them rap.
What do you mean by that? Heckle me with
throw me in the Book of Mormon where you said this.
Philosophical heckles.
Just so polite, so nice, just overly kind.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
No, thank you, Lado. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Salt Lake City Podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, review, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends. And we'll catch you next week. We'll see you there.